Good morning. Baidu, BIDU, Chinese Google stock. The 160 call, 317. These are very, very, very tradable in bull runs. And the thing about it is, they report the earnings on Thursday. Now, having said all of this, let's take a look at a Baidu chart on a weekly level. Okay? And this is a weekly chart. I'll resize it for you here, just so people can have it in here. Here we go. It's a weekly chart. And we're going to be looking at the weekly pattern relative to this bull run. The lows on Baidu look like this. For right now, I'm going to show a weekly as far as the lowest support level on Baidu and that topper channel. And this is a price channel. Okay? MMTs. This is a price channel. Why do I call it a price channel? Because support held there, resistance held up there, and the lower support line, you always, you can come down here to the lower areas, but we want to take it where the trend breaks higher, because it's where the breakout starts, pulls back, makes its peaks in volatility, and this is the price channel that we have here. Okay, so this is the width of that price channel. It's from the all-time highs, of course, and what I will do is take those trend lines off of there. Let me move this over here just a little bit. I'm going to draw a horizontal trend line right here. That's when Baidu broke its downtrend from this $100 area. $100 and some area. This is where it broke its downtrend. So let's establish where the downtrend has been broke and why it has a chance of doing what lots of other internet stocks and their leaders outside of Amazon that dropped big, but nonetheless, we know what Google had to report and whatnot. However, on the weekly chart, you broke the downtrend here. Now, I can take another top to here. I'm going to put a top right there. That's $150 of pushing up here. So what I can do for you is tell you that these kinds of patterns from right here at that support level, these kinds of patterns from here at this support level, and these kind of come up right to here. But I can take that 52-week high hook and I can come right into here. I can also take where the last reversal trends were at the 150, and I can draw a trend line right about where the last weekly reversals were, and you can see that there's a bigger one from here to there. These diagonal trend lines represent something, and they're in a pattern. They do one of two things. Either they super run up higher, meaning that they gap, they break out. But when they break out of these things, here's a shorter term one using the 150 reversal. That was the one, that was the 52-week high reversal pattern here. So you're right in this area, but from where you made the low and the current reversal in the midterm, you broke up out of this pattern. And you can see clear across here for 2011 into 2012 that I come right into that bullet right here. And this is part of that broader trend channel that Baidu has. And yes, it's going to be headline driven. And yes, we will show you that when you are looking at the price channels is how you break those price channels down. And there you're coming to a price, because within the broader price channel, you're going to have that upper end of that resistance levels. This one here, we know that Google is a different type of company. But Baidu is a Chinese ADR. The call and the put strategy is as follows. When you look at where up and out of the money volatility has been paying on a lot of these things, you always got to look for that. We will have this on our alert list. And it's if BIDU continues to break out higher in its weekly pattern, then of course these can trade up going into the earnings. And there can still be a trade from here. It'll be dependent on 213. They report 216. However, there are two types of trades that go that you have to be prepared for. Here's that 160 call, 317, 160 call up and out of the money. We looked at the actual monthly one for February. What we're going to be telling you is that Baidu itself, BIDU, can get a short squeeze going into the earnings report. And what do I mean by a short squeeze going into the earnings report? When we break this resistance line, we're right here at this major resistance line. It's about 139.35 or so, right across this area. This is the midpoint of that overall trend channel that I'm talking about. It's about the midpoint. BIDU could trade right up to here going into Thursday, meaning buy the rumor, walk the shorts out into the earnings report. Case A, trade management A. Case B, trade management B, is going into the earnings, and it will be established starting tomorrow between the buyers and the sellers. However, they can sell down going into the earnings, drop those bids and the calls, shake the current buyer from these lows, bring this down to support by Thursday, or an intraday drop down. Right now it's bullish for a couple of reasons. 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, 4 weeks above the 10 week. The 10 week is slightly, it's not going down like it was here, or the blue line's the 10 week. It's not going down. The other bull case is you're above the 50 week moving average. And that 50 week moving average, and you can write it down, MMTs, is 139.53 is a 50 week. I'm sorry, 50 week is 133.53. 133.53 is going to be the 50 week. The 20 week, just so people know, is 127.2. The current weekly percent DS is at around 61, meaning that before you get overbought like the Googles and some of these other stocks that you see at 92% or whatever, this one has a lot of room to catch up. And I'm going to tell you another thing. Depending on how it trades after the earnings, BIDU had been in a weekly sell signal for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, 9 weeks. Been in a weekly sell signal for 10 weeks. But I will tell you, with that ascending, and when this gets back into a weekly buy signal, outside of the headline, it's the headline now, folks. But this thing has a tendency to get back like it did over here. Once it gets back into a weekly buy signal, and I did this Google trade with you the same way. Once it gets back into the weekly buy signal, this thing has it stays in there for a long time, and it just was too overbought like the regular broader market is right now. When you take a look at the broader market and a lot of names in the NASDAQ 100 and a lot of the things that we've been showing you, this is what they are all like. When Baidu was like that, well, the current stocks are all like this just about right now. This one is not. It's a bright spot if they deliver the quarter. It's a bright spot when you get that weekly moving average. It's a bright spot when you're up and out of the money calls and get them at a wholesale bid by taking advantage of the 160 call up and out of the money. I'm going to go through I'm going to go through a couple sides of the market though, so that in a short term monthly expiration, if you take where Baidu closed on Friday, you're going to find out that we would take the 218 and we would look at the short term 125 put, that is also in a deflated area down here. That's the 125 put below the market. We would be looking at the 130 put as well, going into the monthly, short term only, going into Thursday's earnings. We could take a look at this 135, and they're intraday only. If you hold them more than the intraday, you need to be cashing them in on a daily level. But we'll be looking at, one of the case B is that Baidu pulls back in its new bull trend that it's trying to set itself up in. And if it pulls back, then that means that these puts would go higher intraday. They would go higher. And so we're going to set up the complete scenarios. So I'm going to put the 135, I've got the 130, and the open interest, the volume traded, there was 9,300 contracts traded during the whole week, that is. That's your weekly volume traded. So they've been buying these puts pretty darn consistently all the way down, okay? Been cost averaging down to the bottom, they have. On the 130s, they've just been buying a lot of contracts there on the weekly level. Now, on that 130 call, believe it or not, but you know, they're kind of high up here in value. We could never buy this one. It's too high up in value, but we can tell you that the volume that was traded on a weekly level last week was 18,000 on a weekly level calls. Prior was 24,000 weekly, 129. And 18,000 calls traded last week, total volume on the call side. So these calls are they're buying them up there, MMT. And look at the best way of making money with the least amount of risk is on the short-term trade going into Thursday. That if we're going to break these resistance levels, we will buy the BIDU at the intraday levels. I will give you the 10-week moving average, and this is important. Please write it down. 125.31. The reason why I say that that's important is very important, because on an intraday level, if we have limit orders out there, the only moving average in here that has not turned around yet is this one right here. That's that 20-week. It's starting to finally. That's the red line here. So here, let me do something. Let's clear the list. I need you to have that 10-week moving average. It's flat. It will have to come up. But everything right now going into the earnings, now earnings can change everything in short term. Any drop down to support levels down here toward the 115 area in after hours, or down where the 120 handle is, any drop down in after hours, we would be buying. The next morning we would be stealing those contracts. We're very good at doing it. So we're going to put this on the SMF alert, MMT alert service. There it is. There's the weekly. It's 127.27. And I will tell you another thing, where the bigger people want to come in and buy, and where this trend really gets strong is that negative 0.6 goes positive, and the earnings get good and this goes positive, it will be just like that Google trade was when you did the weekly buy signal. So what I can tell you is between now and Thursday, it's an intraday trade level. After hours, when they report, it's time to either put on that day, on that Thursday day, wherever our calls and put strategies are looking at, and what side of the market we take with it leading into the report. So if this thing wants to break higher going into earnings and come right up here and test this top, that's 141.74. Hey, I'm trading the calls up there, but I'm getting out and I'm dumping them because they're not to be held overnight going into the earnings report on the February. The February contract is that if we want to use the March Madness contract, we can. So we can use an overnight calls up and out of the money. We can use an overnight March puts down below the market. That's real cheap if we want to hedge it. The one 10 put is at its all-time lows and could go lower, but we would look at hedging some of our risk on an earnings after hours announcement, knowing that Friday morning the options are going to open up totally different in how they steal premium and how we buy that premium when the pit traders are taking that premium away. So this is my spill for UMMT, and I feel that there's a big trade. It's due. It depends on their quarterly earnings. If they beat that number and guide, hey, you're getting a $25 run out of the stock over the next month period. So we're going to position ourselves correctly, MMTs, and we're going to trade the February for the intraday. And if we want to develop something overnight for a big pop or a big drop, we would use the 317, okay? And the 218 monthly expiration this week, we'll just trade these intraday. Anybody have any questions about the BIDU? The video then. So what we're going to do is we're going to trade BIDU. We're going to trade it, and we're going to trade it. And then Friday, whatever BIDU wants to do, we will be positioned for Friday, because we can always buy in after hours during the earnings report. We can always get in and hold it overnight, whether we were buying a left elbow or rather short in a right elbow, which we wouldn't. But in after hours, we're going to trade the stock outright. So we can always add that stock into the overnight position on Thursday night. We get in it toward the low, and they run it up $4, $5, $7, $8, and you got your entry. Of course, you can hold it overnight for the bigger gap, and vice versa on the short side. It doesn't matter what side. We will be doing one or the other